Welcome to Project You. This podcast explores how integrating changes into your day can produce the best in health, longevity, and performance. We've recruited experts from around the globe who unleash their wisdom to transform your world. Project You dives into how to live a fully optimized life and uncovers tools and techniques to unleash your maximum potential. You only get one shot at this life, so let's get started.
Hello, fellow Project U listeners. This is episode 58, and welcome back. What I'm sharing today is really about unhacking growth, and I'll explain to you a little bit more about that title shortly. The common modus operandi is how to hack, and we'll get into that as well, but this is really my attempt at saving you time, effort, money, possibly, and frustration. And so what we're talking about really is how to maximize your body's ability to benefit from exercise and also to recovery from exercise. And then just for sticking around at the end, I'm going to share something special, just something I put out there for you with a really special bonus that you can get. So let's dive into this. Really, it's frustrating, it's challenging. Patients, athletes, when I see them in my practice, they're often frustrated, they're confused. The data out there on supplements and exercise techniques is really often confusing. It's based on conjecture and often anecdotal. What I'm going to share next is just some basics of growth hormone. It's really critical to understand that for a foundation of the nuts and bolts of this podcast episode. So what is growth hormone and why should you care? Growth hormone is our body's ability to repair itself and to regenerate tissues. Without it, we'd be dead, essentially. And there are some medical conditions where growth hormone deficiency produces, dwarfism in small stature, or the extreme, the acromegaly, the Andre the Giants, and those are the extremes. The important things to know is that exercise is really our most potent stimulator of growth hormone. Followed by that closely is sleep, and so sleep deprivation really wreaks havoc with our body's ability to recover, regenerate, and repair itself. The other cool things that growth hormone does is it helps to produce some sugar in the liver, it helps break down fat, and it also helps boost protein synthesis, which for many people, they're interested in having a little bit more muscle mass, not necessarily being a bodybuilder, but increasing lean body mass, which leads to, at least by Western standards, a more attractive physique. Boosting the immune system is another benefit, and it also helps promote and stimulate healthy metabolism. And then the last point I wanted to drive home is it's really critical for bone mineralization. So if bones are not properly and adequately mineralized, this leads to weak bones, or osteoporosis in medical terms, and that really dramatically increases the risk of fracture. It may not be so important, or may not appear to be so important to those of you who maybe are in your 20s, 30s, or 40s listening, but realize this, that fracture risk and decreased muscle mass as a person ages are significant contributing factors to decline and dementia. I've talked about that on some previous episodes. Like anything in life, hormones need to be in balance in the body. Too much or too little really leads to problems, and this is the same for growth hormone. A few things that a person can do to sort of stimulate their growth hormone, to sort of optimize it in a safe and effective manner, is getting quality sleep. That's really critical. Really within the first hour, maybe 2 hours, that's when your body's growth hormone production is ramped up and is the highest. Other ways to hack your physiology is by eating protein before bed. I've talked about avoiding carbohydrates before bed because of the rapid metabolism and subsequent hypoglycemia that can wake you up. But the other benefit of eating protein before bed is it can really help boost growth hormone production. So the corollary of that is avoiding sugar before bedtime. We know that for a variety of reasons why eating sugar and even high fructose foods are not a great idea. The other thing is that it's confusing. You open up any magazine, any sports related magazine, and you're going to see sports drinks, you're going to see chocolate milk, and all these things touted as recovery drinks because of the glycemic window period where we're trying to get some calories, some energy back in the body to replace glycogen stores. But the key thing to note is that sugary drinks right after exercise, they actually blunt growth hormone release. And the reason you should really care about that is one of the prime ways your body capitalizes on the benefit from exercise, whether that's building muscle mass or getting the other benefits that you're looking for in terms of endurance and strength and fitness goals overall. Fasting and intermittent fasting, I've talked about that in the 120-year diet podcast episode. But hunger stimulates a hormone called ghrelin. And what ghrelin does is it stimulates growth hormone, which in turn increases nitric oxide release, which is important for blood vessel health. And so being hungry, it's not a bad thing. Unfortunately, in our society, people are freaked out if they're hungry for more than a half hour. But really, there's some clear benefits from fasting. Even fasting as little as 4 to 5 hours between meals has shown some pretty nice scientific data. Sleep deprivation, that's going to be a crux here in just a moment. But sleep deprivation, what this does is it drives cortisol, which is your stress hormone. Cortisol is catabolic. That means it breaks down the body. Catabolism is chewing, essentially, and it causes protein degradation. So a person who's sleep deprived goes out and has a hard run or a hard training session. They're putting out tons of cortisol. The body's in a catabolic state. It's breaking down protein, and it also is boosting insulin. So the overall result is that you're putting in the effort, the time, the sweat, the tears, but not really getting the benefit out of it. Not building and synthesizing protein because growth hormone production is poor, and insulin's ramped up, so the body's in a sort of a survival mode, and it's trying to store fat. So all the things that you don't want to happen after exercise, by depriving your body of quality sleep, you're really setting yourself up for wasted efforts. Another example is the concept of intensity versus volume. And it's clear from the cycling literature that long-distance cyclists, they tend to have high cortisol. Their testosterone tends to be lower, which also decreases their bone strength. And they also have higher insulin levels. And so none of those things are really in themselves desirable. So isn't the simple answer just to take growth hormone? Well, it's illegal in this country. Some European countries, it's not illegal. But the reality is that too much or too little causes problems. It can lead to diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and heart failure. So obviously very risky, life-altering disease processes there. So growth hormone is obviously not the key in terms of supplementation. The real risk is that whenever you're trying to artificially manipulate a system that needs to be in fine balance, it's not without risk and it's not without potential problems. So the reality is that growth hormone production is released in response to exercise based in a linear relationship based on intensity. It's not on duration, it's not on volume. So the thought of, a person who's maybe overweight or obese who's going to go out for a super long run, just look at any marathon. You see plenty of people crossing the finish line with higher body mass indexes. Look at the sprinters. I've shared this many times in the past. The high intensity, they're lean, they're muscular, their physique is completely different, and that's for the reasons I alluded to just briefly before about cortisol and insulin and the balance between those. So how can you hack this? How do you deal with this? How does a person get the most benefit from their exercise and their training? Well, obviously sleep is key. The other way to sort of hack this, if you will, is through exercise. When I opened this podcast, I mentioned that exercise is one of the most potent stimulators of growth hormone. So how can you hack this? Well, there's a refractory period, which means the brain will dump out growth hormone. There's a feedback loop that shuts it off, and so it's refractory. It's just like sex. After orgasm, there's a refractory period. The same thing applies to the other hormones in the body, including growth hormone. But if there's a 4-hour span between exercise periods, you can really get a second spike in growth hormone. That's part of the reason that there are 2-a-day football practices or soccer practices. It's a way to physiologically maximize the results. As long as they're separated by at least a 4-hour window, that's a simple way to hack the body's growth hormone system. And it's, I'm not advocating that you adopt a 2-a-day program. You have to decide that for yourself or with, discussion of your personal physician. But it's something that I adopt periodically and that some of the athletes and patients that I work with, I suggest as well. The point I want you to remember, though, is it's not about volume. You can certainly do a short, high-intensity Tabata workout, a 4-minute workout, and get some of the benefits of not only endorphin release and feeling good after working out, but also the boost in growth hormone production. So I've shared a link on the blog, mitchellmd.com, and you'll see it on Unhacking Growth with some links to the workout that I was talking about and a short video that you can watch as well. And so the other thing to point out in terms of people who may be potentially looking for maintenance of lean muscle mass, but weight loss. And so what's the difference between pure aerobic versus those who are doing a mixed or a resistance weightlifting body weight type group? Well, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the study, but just want to give you the bullet point, the summary here. In the aerobic only group, they did lose weight. They lost, a decent amount of weight in the study, about 30 pounds over the course of the study. But they also lost 10 pounds of lean muscle mass. And in the end result, as you know, muscle obviously burns much more calories than fat. They're burning an average of 210 fewer calories at rest compared to those who were doing some form of resistant training. In that group, they had about the same amount of fat loss, but they had zero muscle loss, and they actually increased their resting basal metabolic rate. So they're burning more calories at rest, 63 more calories compared to the negative 210 of the aerobic group. So just take that into heart when thinking about the type of exercise program that you'd like to adopt, or maybe you're interested in changing or switching something up. Now I want to move on to a specific supplement. It's something that has been used for a long time in the literature. And honestly, I used to use it myself in the past until I really dug into the science. I haven't used it for several years, and I'll share why. What I'm talking about is arginine. And you see this in a number of supplements, bodybuilding, weightlifting, sports supplements, sometimes combined with other amino acids. And the design is to give you the pump. And the way that arginine works is it causes production of nitric oxide, or NO, which dilates the blood vessels. This gives the rip look, the pump look that people are often interested and excited about when they're working out. But the reality is that that's temporary. It's not a long-standing result. One of the theories is that if we can increase blood flow to the muscle, then it's got to stimulate growth, right? Well, think back to earlier when I was talking about cortisol and stress response, cortisol being catabolic. It doesn't necessarily work that way. Even though arginine can temporarily boost growth hormone, the results are really detrimental, and I'll explain why. There was a study done in 2006. It was a small study, but what they found is that when athletes took arginine supplementation before working out, they actually had a 300% decrease in growth hormone. That's huge. That's massive. Arginine will actually shut off the growth hormone system. And so what I suggest is that why would a person take a supplement that results in a very small, short boost in growth hormone when the body can hack the system all on its own by exercising with high intensity, can really ramp up growth hormone production fivefold naturally. So just take that into consideration. The bullet point here is that arginine before exercise, even though it stimulates growth hormone release, growth hormone becomes refractory, and then a person doesn't get the full benefit of exercise. The other thing to think about is that there is an enzymatic system that breaks down arginine and creates nitric oxide. Well, unfortunately, because of genetics and differences in people's own metabolism, sometimes it doesn't go the normal route, doesn't go the normal pathway. And the end result is that there's a toxic intermediary produced, which is just a damaging free radical, which doesn't do anything to boost health. There's also some additional science by Dr. Liu, and unfortunately what they found, or however you want to view that, is that growth hormone supplementation doesn't work. It increases lean muscle mass, but it didn't really necessarily increase the overall strength. While it increased metabolic rate, it doesn't really change the VO2 max, the power output, or the endurance. And so a person risking their health by taking growth hormone supplementation really gets no benefit in all the risk. So that kind of sums it up here. The bullet points here are that arginine is counterproductive. A person really needs to weigh the benefits and risks versus reduction in exercise benefit if they're considering taking that. And I encourage you not to buy into the myth or the hype. I mean, marketing is powerful, labels are powerful, images are powerful. Look at the image I used for this podcast cover. But the studies don't support it. Save your money, save your time, invest in your diet, get proper sleep, and consider the type of exercise. I encourage you to check out HIIT or Tabata. And as promised, there's a link at the end of this episode. It's my latest project, and there's something very special, a bonus inside just for you. You can find that link at the blog at mitchellmd.com. And this is episode 58. As always, be safe, be well, have a fantastic week, and I'll talk to you soon.